falls upon me to introduce the last speaker. Last week, 2 men lost their lives under police arrest in the United States of America. Keith Scott in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Terrence Crutcher in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But the reaction of the two communities differed when faced with the deaths of these 2 men. There were protests in Charlotte, North Carolina, and those protests were hijacked. Those peaceful protesters were hijacked by a minority among them who began rioting and looting and pillaging in the center of Charlotte. Whereas the death of Terrence Crutcher in Tulsa, Oklahoma, sparked no such riots, but instead the community responded in offerings of peace and prayer and unity. And at the time, the question was asked, what was the difference, the key difference in these 2 communities that meant that one was mired by these protests that were hijacked by these riots, and the other, where there were protesters, they remained peaceful, and the community turned to prayer and hope, including the family. And one key answer in the difference between those 2 reactions was the presence of leadership on the grassroots. Effective leadership that can direct the struggle to the very same anger and the very same injustice. Our next speaker epitomizes such leadership because our Muslim communities are facing a very similar crisis, not just in the West, but across the world. But to show that leadership takes real strength and sacrifice. Fatima Zaman is a Muslim female from Tower Hamlets in London. And I want to break those 3 things down for you, because you've heard a bit about some of the stigmatization involved, both that's coming from certain sectors within Muslim communities, but also upon Muslims due to this intractable problem of extremism that we're all talking about here. So on the one end, being a Muslim, she has to face and answer to all of that baggage that isn't her making and isn't of her creation. But that requires strength. But then she's a woman, and within my communities, for a woman to be so vocal against extremism is particularly difficult. People often say, it's not your role. People often say, leave the brothers to talk religion. Many mosques in the United Kingdom, most in fact, the majority, still don't have space for women to pray in the main hall. And then on top of that, she's from Tower Hamlets, an area that has sent people to join ISIS, where young schoolgirls have gone to become brides of ISIS fighters and go on to incite others to join them. It's a particularly challenging area for socio-economic reasons and has a history of battling fascism as well. But Fatima has decided to show leadership. And when I first met her in Amsterdam, I was inspired not just by her zeal and her passion, but this woman here is fierce. You saw her earlier on the stage with Kofi Annan's Extremely Together program. She's one of the leaders on that program. And you heard her speak to you about that. But also, she works to protect us all and to defend us all, and in doing so, risks her own safety. She works with the United Kingdom government as a civil servant to protect us by working with the government in rolling out counter-extremism policies and counter-terrorism policies, and helping to make the United Kingdom a more integrated, cohesive, and welcoming and pluralistic country. I'd like you all to follow her on Twitter. Her Twitter handle is @EFFBEEZEE, right? Easy enough to remember. And I'm going to hand over to Fatima. Before I do, I'll ask you to stand up, because I want to take the pledge. I am Majid Nawaz. I come to you from Mazra'at Tora prison in Cairo, in Egypt. And I stand extremely together with you because we, Muslims and everybody else, can own this problem of extremism, and we can win. And we can show everyone that the world can be more united if we stand together. Fatima Zaman. Thank you.
Thank you. I am British, I am Bengali, and I am Muslim. For some, I epitomize the intersection of three different cultures. For others, I am the manifestation of all that is wrong with the world. On July 7th, 2005, I witnessed multiple terrorist attacks take place across London. I saw the devastating effects of the Aldgate blast. I was only 13 years old. Worse, that day cemented the threat of insecurity into my psyche. It sparked changes in foreign policy and changed the views of Muslims within the UK, a view I felt personally. That day, I chose to take a stand against terrorism. Since 2005, almost 94% of terrorist attacks are associated with Islam and Muslims. I personally find it perplexing that my identity, my religion, and my faith is such a devastating force. Yet Daesh or ISIS is not the only threat to our world. The National Front from the far right are rising across Europe. The FARC from the far left terrorize the Colombian nation, and even the moderate middle across Europe are increasingly xenophobic, threatening a long-held peace and stability. Extremists succeed because of social fragmentation, disenfranchisement, and discontent with the current political situation. These groups prey on the most vulnerable, exploit their naivety, and set about to ensnare young people with notions of understanding, promises of a utopia, a better way of life, and a bond that is forged in the midst of battle. Today, I work in the highest levels of government to dispel, destroy, and drown out extremist propaganda that threatens young people. In state schools and colleges across the UK, I run workshops to educate against hate. The students are from diverse backgrounds, including Christians, Muslims, and Sikhs. We talk and debate the sensitive issues of extremism and identity, asking questions such as, what does it mean to be British? How can young people reconcile their British identities with their cultural and religious heritage? We are countering extremist claims that these young people will not and do not belong in society. We are increasing students' religious and spiritual literacy, helping them to be more discerning, to question what they see and hear, to think critically, and to form their own opinions, rather than be susceptible to extremist propaganda. This, I believe, is the key to the fight against extremism. To date, we have been to 5 schools and reached over 500 young people. Most students begin with a frustration at inconsistent foreign policies towards the Middle East, question the use of social media by extremists, and discuss the role of faith as a counter-effort. Sadly, we cannot reach everyone. Over 650 British women and girls have gone to Syria to join Daesh. The media portray them as jihadi brides only. They're in fact being used to recruit young people, particularly young girls. They become part of the IS machine, spreading online propaganda, which is often gender-biased, sharing tweets, messages, and Facebook posts about the glamorous jihad, how they are living in utopia, and creating an atmosphere of sisterhood among the women there. Their slick social media campaigns are sexy, but they produce a potent mix that captures young, vulnerable girls from countries like the UK who are looking for a purpose in life. Realizing this, I felt compelled as a woman, as a Muslim, and as a proud Briton to reach out to our youth and dispel the idea of a 5-star jihad. I have helped set up a government website called Educate Against Hate, uniquely designed to use education as a primary method of prevention. It provides teaching tools for students, teachers, parents, and practitioners to run their own anti-radicalization workshops, including debating packages to help develop critical thinking, advice for parents on how to protect young people from recruiters, and information on the different pathways to becoming radicalized. And of course, ways to detect and prevent extremism. Within a week of launching, we received over 30,000 hits on Google, and it's rising. Countering violent extremism must be youth-led and should be a fundamental priority of every nation. Extremism is simply an expression of fear and hate. Through effective, targeted education, I have seen firsthand how we can educate to inoculate. My message to those who seek to sow division in our communities. You may have an army of militant fighters, but there is only so far that hate can travel. I have chosen education as my weapon. I am using schools as my battleground, and I am using words of knowledge to fight the extremist ideology. I ask you all to do the same. Thank you very much.